I think you said it, if I'm not mistaken. It's better to be kind than right
Yeah, well, that's yeah. I took that
from a
from this
teacher.
book,
Oh,
Wonder,
mm,
which itself was quoting some psychologist, I think. Um, yeah, the teacher in this book puts quotes on the board every day, and one of the quotes they put on the board was, "It's better to be kind than right." And the first time I read it, I was like, "That's ridiculous! It's to be right is to be kind." It's sort of a, and I still, there's a part of me, I'm
depends.
an academic. I like
False
to be right.
dichotomy.
I don't want to be wrong. You can be kind and right at the same time, but there are lots of ways to be right that are not kind. And sometimes being right and being kind takes a lot more effort. Figuring out how to be right and also kind is really important. So the way I think about that quote now is not, yeah, it is in a sense a false dichotomy, but better to be slowly or thoughtfully right and kind than to be right as quickly as possible or something like that, or to be right reflexively. It's just easy. It's easy to tell me, especially if you have a kid, I've got a kid, it's very easy to be right. Kids are wrong all the time, but it's almost always cruel.
Yeah. And
And it takes effort to be right and to be nice.
yeah, and there's this great story that I use from Danny Kahneman, essentially, where he tells his students, he says, look, don't try to be smart and don't try to prove how smart you are by telling me how wrong your other classmate is, but tell me how right he is. So what he talks about, kind of going back to the idea of dialectic, is when we're arguing, what we're looking for is what's right about the other person's argument. Obviously, you can do both, and I mean, that's sort of like the pinnacle. You would try to do both, but the idea is we're all too quick to sort of point out what's wrong. So like just a quick example, a friend of mine, so she's an intellectual, an academic, so she did she did a talk recently, and she said something along the lines of, well, humans are not animals, which is obviously for the most part true. But of course, some asshole in the crowd was like, oh, excuse me, like, how did you get your credentials? Humans are animals. And it's like, dude, like, really, this is not, what is the point of that? You didn't need to say that. Like, she understands that. She was making a point that had nothing, well, not nothing, but wasn't as relevant to your statement as you think it is. But there are always going to be people who kind of want to show the other person up and say, oh, well, let me find what's wrong about it. So I really like the idea of dialectic, of first looking for what's right about the argument and sort of like pretty much altering it in whatever way you see fit.